You know, I find it so crazy with the era that we're currently in when it comes to fighting games, as someone that's a Dead or Alive player, bro. Even from Dead or Alive 6's perspective, yes, the game was smacked due to greed, but in reality, a lot of the blame also goes into the groupthink of DOA at the time, bro. Groupthink. The memes, the general stigma of the game pushed away people, which also led to its downfall. And yet somehow in 2025 we live in a time where, despite Dead or Alive having them features and them flaws in its most recent entry, other fighting games have the same shit. Nasty DLC practices. Like, yes, Dead or Alive has some egregious DLC practices and prices, bro, but the way to circumvent that, in the Dead or Alive shop, they had tickets. They had their own version of an in-game currency that you could buy. And unlike how they have it now, where you're buying like, oh, you can only buy 500 coins, but they have packs that cost 400, which leave you with 100 left. That way it can just make you want to buy more coins and more coins, because the having that little bit left, and that little bit adds up and makes you want to just use it to spend it on some other stuff, right? You know, the same manipulative tactics that every storefront likes to do now. At least in the DOA shop, you can buy one singular ticket if you need it. And it was direct prices, bro. It wasn't this crazy model that we have now. But yes, the DOA thing is, the DOA prices were egregious, but they're doing the same thing. They're just doing it in a different way that's more manipulative and tricking you out of your money, bro. The fan service for DOA was mocked, and honestly, I got a whole video that I have a whole video I'm working on that's just talking about the absolute hypocrisy of this shit. Like, bro, the fan service and gooning, with, I put air quotes when I say gooning, bro, that shit was a thing before and after DOA, bro. And for whatever reason, DOA gets the most shit for it just because they have fan service as a usual part of their marketing. You know, not like other fighting games don't do the same thing, but hey, I guess the modernized fighting game mechanics that dumb the game down so people who are new to the game have an easier time getting wins and playing the game more. Like the stuff with the meter mechanic and all this stuff we was talking about in DOA 6 when that was fresh out. We're literally seeing this with current fighting games in this fighting game generation. Drive rush and viable modern controls with Street Fighter, the ruthless aggression plus frames, and the heat meter system with Tekken, bro. The list goes on, bro. And in a way, it seems like DOA was almost ahead of the curve with how the future of fighting games are looking like, bro. Yet almost every aspect of DOA 6 gets shit on, and I can only sit here and wonder why. So originally, I had planned to create a video for DOA that kind of exposes the general groupthink that buried the most recent entry into the series, that being Dead or Alive 6. But in the midst of doing this, I had an epiphany, right? I kept looking at different blunders that happen with DOA, with the information that's readily available, and I just kept asking myself, why did it have to be this way? This isn't going to be a full recap of what happened to DOA or what DOA could do better as a fighting game in the future, because I made a few videos speaking about this already. Other DOA figureheads have already spoke about this already in the past, and quite frankly, anyone can get a full story on ChatGPT or something and turn it into a grift if they really wanted to. DOA kind of has a grifting problem right now, but I digress, bro. I'm instead going to show you what happened when I asked the question why. And by asking the question why, I've came up with a theory that may kind of put a lot of these pieces together in greater context. And not only that, but may even predict if Dead or Alive, the fighting game, will ever truly be revived by Koei Tecmo. Not Team Ninja, but Koei Tecmo. Because I feel like they are the key to all of this. Cartel, my people, my babies, my dogs, what's going on, y'all boys, man? You already know what time it is, man. It's your boy Golden Ghost, and welcome back to the Golden Ghost Cartel. And today I would like to talk to you about how DOA 6 fell, where the company felt, like where the company was at with DOA 6, and quite frankly, potentially how they might feel now. What Team Ninja needs to do in order to push Koei Tecmo to greenlight another DOA, and explain what those things are in grave detail, and then use all of this to make a clear judgment, or a clear hypothetical judgment, if there was ever a chance for Dead or Alive, the fighting game, to return in the first place. And with all that being said, let's begin. But first,
Golden Ghost Cartel.
So to get started with all of this, the first place that came to my head was how the nail in the coffin for DOA 6 struck, and that was the Dead or Alive 6 hair debacle. The absolute greed that happened with the hair, to where you had to pay to change your hair color, which normally is all fine and dandy. You know, it's nasty because in other fighting games you can just change that shit for free. So it's already nasty that you had to buy hair colors individually. That was already nasty. But what really solidified it was once you bought one, if you want to change it back to that one, you had to buy it again. And then after you changed that, so on and so forth, you basically had to spend money each time you changed your hairstyle. And that really just fried it, because the DOA community was not going for that at all. Koei Tecmo, Team Ninja, they said, alright, here goes refunds. And they refunded people, reimbursed people for the however much people spent on them hair colors. And not too shortly after that, they ended up stopping updates for the game, and we haven't heard anything new from the fighting game since. Now, this has had me wondering for a long time, why was, of all things, this the nail in the coffin? They already had bad monetization practices before with the DLC costumes. They were reselling the same DLC costumes that was already in 5. That didn't do it. The season pass prices that people, even Angry Joe Show had, I remember Angry Joe Show had made a video talking about how nasty the season pass prices were for Dead or Alive 6. That didn't do it. But for whatever reason, them giving refunds back to the players as an apology was the nail in the coffin. And I always wondered why that was. And in order to figure that out, I had to figure out what exactly Koei Tecmo, Team Ninja, I had to figure out what these priorities were for this, because in the midst of all this, Koei Tecmo was kind of moving like Namco without Namco money. That's kind of the way I felt. So I did some digging, because I really want to know where the mind space of Team Ninja, Koei Tecmo, I wanted to figure out where their mindset was at when it came to not only this, but just their goals in general. Because maybe their goals in general can shine some light as to why this was the final plug. This is an interview that was done by Yasuda. I don't really remember the name of the place. It was a Japanese site that I translated, but this was regarding Wolong Fallen Dynasty. And at some point, they started asking about classic IPs. Ninja Gaiden was the main one that they was talking about here. Yasuda mainly was going over like how he was happy how people are big fans of existing series and stuff like that. But the main thing that he said here was, we're really happy there are so many fans and we want to make a title for those existing series, but it's all down to seeing if that's a possibility, if there are skill sets in there for the team to make use of that. The other thing that I noted was that Yasuda had also worked on Final Fantasy Origins coming in for Ninja Gaiden. Or another thing that I noted was that Yasuda also worked on Final Fantasy Origins, in which he felt like that the stuff was completely different. That, you know, the way the scale and the fan base of Final Fantasy is completely different from Ninja Gaiden. And strangely enough, this interviewer actually did kind of predict what they planned on doing with Ninja Gaiden when he asked about considering outsourcing for a new game for games like Ninja Gaiden. Because Yasuda said, we're not announcing anything. If we were to theoretically work with another company on a new Ninja Gaiden title, we would need to make sure that it would be a title that the fans would really enjoy and exceed their expectations. Not just a matter of, hey, let's go do this. All the pieces would need to fit and would need to be to the right team. Either a younger team internally or another company that would need to fit the Ninja Gaiden pedigree. And we know that what they chose for that pedigree now would be Platinum Games. Now, this could all just be some corporate mumbo jumbo just to get people, you know, in the good graces that there's a potential new Ninja Gaiden on the way or something like that. But if I'm to take this at face value and give Team Ninja the benefit of the doubt, Yasuda the benefit of the doubt. I don't think that this is a Ninja Gaiden or a developer issue. I think that the problem is a Koei Tecmo issue. And I say that because we have a couple more interviews to go over. Here's another one. Dynasty Warriors. The Dynasty Warrior producer says the series still can't be called a success in the West. The main thing to note there is right there in the headline. I believe the Dynasty Warriors series is not yet in a position to be called a success in the West. On the contrary, I believe that there is a great potential for the series to gain many fans in the future. This was in promotion for Dynasty Warriors Origins, which, if you guys know, Koei Tecmo deemed this as a major success. How do we know that it's a success for them? Let's keep it going. I feel like this is probably the most damning article of them all from Push Square, where they just said it outright, which kind of really opened my eyes for this. If this doesn't sell, there won't be a next one. Dynasty Warriors 3 remake producer asks for support. Right? The quote is right there. If this game isn't successful, there won't be a next one. So we're looking forward to your support, he rather bluntly states. All of this tells me a couple of things. And this isn't just for the people who make the Ninja Gaiden games. It also goes to different studios. Their games lie on two factors: being up to the pedigree of their old IPs or of their IP standard. It tells me that they want to make a game that satisfies the fans, so it's based on fan interest. And then it tells me right there from the horse's mouth, it has to make money. It has to be good at making money. If it doesn't make money, they're not interested. My theory is that since DOA 6 already wasn't living up to sales expectations in comparison to other games anyway, due to a factor of different reasons, being the DLC practices, just regular sales, etc., it was probably already on that fine line. But then when they had to give money back to the players after one of their DLC practices fell back on its head, that alone probably put them into the red and ultimately gave them the decision to go ahead and just put that game down and say we're no longer supporting this. And like I said, on top of this, and on top of how Yohei Shimbori was in his interviews, even Itagaki himself said that Shimbori listened a little bit too much to the players, right? So again, I don't think that this is a Team Ninja issue or the developer issue. I think this is a publisher Koei Tecmo issue. I have reason to believe that these developers want to make a good game, but the publisher needs to have these two things. They need to have fan interest and it needs to make money. And when they're losing money, it makes them want to shut the whole operation off. It's crazy how DOA had such a hard time selling. But you want to know a game of DOA that does sell? The extreme games. And not in the way that you think. So that had me again thinking, what games do Team Ninja sell that they prioritize? This is Koei Tecmo's lifetime sales as of their fiscal report from 2024 December 31st. So this is probably their most up-to-date information as far as their lifetime sales. As you can see, Ninja Gaiden has over 7.5 million copies. That's not including Ninja Gaiden 4 or Ragebound, but with the most recent entry being the Master Collection, over 7.5 million copies is what Ninja Gaiden has. Versus some of their other games, a la the Warriors games, Dynasty Warriors, or Samurai Warriors, list for starters, selling over 8 million copies with Samurai Warriors 5, and Dynasty Warriors selling over 21 million copies. And I don't even think that's including the Origins. That's just including their 9 and 8 Extreme Legends. And then you have the Artillery series, which is basically, you may as well say it's about 9.5 million to 10 million copies. You may as well say, if you're combining the Secret series, it may as well be the same thing. And then the two series that I also want to focus on is Neo, because you see that Neo also has the over 7.5 million copies, just like Ninja Gaiden does, but they're still making games to this day. And Neo 3 is on the horizon. So that kind of had me thinking, but then I kind of had to put it into perspective, right? Because Ninja Gaiden has been around since 2004. So what is that? 11 years? Going on 12 years? To sell 7.5 million copies? Nioh hasn't been out nowhere near as long as that. Nioh's only been out since 2017. So that kind of puts it in perspective, you know, as to why they're making more. They're making more because they're selling the same amount in less time. This is more than likely going to far eclipse Ninja Gaiden by the time that it's out, for as long as Ninja Gaiden has been out now. Which kind of makes me think, like, dang, was Ninja Gaiden really as popular as I believed it to be? I thought Ninja Gaiden was that shit. You know, I'm a guy, I fuck with Ninja Gaiden. I like Ninja Gaiden a lot. You know, I thought it was like the pinnacle action game, bro. But it's like I get that Ninja Gaiden 3 did a lot of damage to the series and all that they recollected a lot with Razor's Edge. But it's like, for it to stunt the growth to where it's only making 7.5 million copies, I don't know, man. It's just rough. It's just rough to think that even just accounting the OG Ninja Gaiden 2, I would think that it would sell more than 7.5 million copies. But then again, that might be why we're in the position that we're in. So you're probably looking at all this and probably wondering, well, okay, what did Dead or Alive sell? Well, from what I could find, Dead or Alive 6 moved 350,000 units in the first month. Not too shabby, but you got to keep in mind that DOA 5 moves 580,000 copies within the first month, and that doesn't even compare to Dead or Alive 4, which moved 700,000 copies in the first 2 months. So needless to say, Dead or Alive 6 wasn't really doing as good as the older games from just a sales perspective or a sales trajectory. In fact, the sales are probably going down. To make matters worse, another Dead or Alive game came out around the same exact time as Dead or Alive 6. That'd be Dead or Alive Extreme 3 Scarlet, which came out on the 20th of March, 3 weeks after DOA 6 came out for the PS4 and Nintendo Switch. In my hypothesis, I believe that Dead or Alive 6 and Dead or Alive Extreme 3 Scarlet was created at the same time to try to appeal both audiences. Dead or Alive 6, they was trying to market it as a fighting game. And then Dead or Alive Extreme 3 Scarlet, they was trying to promote that with basically just like the other functions of the game, like new characters, new costumes, and, you know, basically the other stuff that comes with Extreme, right? You know, just the stuff for the girls, stuff for the girlies, you feel me? What this did, in my hypothesis, was create a form of mixed messaging, because you had the team trying to promote Dead or Alive as a fighting game, but then you also had Dead or Alive trying to just say, here's the girls, here's the boobies, here's the ass, right? And it's not bad for games to have both, but when you have them saying the fighting is the main focal point, but then at the same time saying, no, the girls are the main focal point, because you have two different games that achieve two different things, but under the same title coming out at the same time, I feel like that created a form of mixed messaging within the audience. Not to mention that fully leaning onto one means isolating the other off completely, which kind of just interferes with the identity of Dead or Alive as a product. And continuing my hypothesis, I feel like Dead or Alive, Team Ninja, Koei Tecmo had to make a choice. They had to choose which one they were going to push more into, lean more into, or instead of trying to find a balance, they felt like they had to choose one over the other. And what did they choose? I believe they chose the extreme games, which is why.
What the fuck, man? Like,
what's going on?
Seriously. What do you mean? Like, you know, man, what the fuck? They just killed.
They're talking about the stream that went down, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know what happened.
Well, because the dude just tweeted about it.
Who just tweeted about it?
Fucking Mr. Wiz just put a tweet out saying they cut it because it's against their core values.
Give me the... Tag me on
It's in the
Twitter.
DOA group. It's in the DOA group. Just go ahead and check right on the DOA group.
Oh, yeah, I just saw it.
He literally tweeted that shit, and they said they cut it because of it goes against their core values. Now, dude, I love this fucking game so much.
Hold on.
For the longest time, I looked at the whole core value situation and I just kind of sat there like, bro, why did this need to happen? Why did this exist? And I feel like now a lot more of this stuff is kind of just opened up to me. Now, with all this information that we have so far, you would think that the extreme spin-off games sell way more than the DOA fighting games, right? Well, yes and no. So the thing about this is, Dead or Alive, the fighting game, typically sells about double of what the extreme games make, right? So like, for example, DOA 2 sold 1 million, but the DOA Extreme Beach Volleyball sold only 500,000. But what really sold it over was DOA Extreme 3, more specifically DOA Extreme Venus Vacation. And I think the reason why these games took a priority over the other ones is not because of the raw numbers, because the extreme titles sell lower raw numbers, right? They sell a fraction of what the actual fighting games sell. However, they're cheaper to produce and they're often more profitable because of the monetizations that they're able to put into the game. They've made, I don't know if you've seen, but the Venus Vacation is almost like a gacha style game. It's almost like a gacha style monetization system. The DLCs that they put in there with the microtransactions and stuff like that. It's better long-term moneymaker. It's a better long-term moneymaker for the company because of the way that you can set up the post monetization content in the game. And people, to be honest, it's way easier to sell that to people than trying to sell DLC to fighting game players. It's way easier to sell that to gacha players or people that like that type of stuff, because games like Genshin, games like Zenless Zone Zero, the companies that run them games, Wuthering Waves, they're rolling in money. And with games like Venus Vacation, that was running strong all the way since 2017 all the way up till that point, it was a free-to-play title that was running off of like a gacha style system that made it just good and financially successful because of the long-term income that they could make from it. And with all that being said, they chose, instead of highlighting the fighting game for the fighting, they made the decision to highlight it for the thing that makes them money, even if it's something that the West didn't want to see. Funnily enough, the extreme games sell good even outside of Japan. That game ended up getting about 600,000 downloads outside of Japan. And Dead or Alive Extreme 3 is a Japan region lock. It's a region lock game. You can't just go on the PlayStation Store and get that. If you're American, you gotta jump around some hoops just to get access to it. I say all this to say, Koei Tecmo is extremely money motivated, bro. And this money motivation influences every decision they make, which is why core values even happen in the first place. Now, that's just my hypothesis. That's not 100% fact, but that's just what I'm drawing from all of this. You combine this with the fact that they already previously sort of alienated their core audience by announcing they want to go full fighting game and less sexualization, alienating their casual fan base. It kind of just made this even more so apparent to me, because they were fighting extremely hard to maintain this core audience back. So Koei Tecmo made that choice, and although a lot of us fighting game fans of DOA were massively disappointed with that blunder that they made and seemingly extremely tone deaf decision that they made, I'm willing to bet that KT feels happy with their decision. Because you want to know what game still gets supported to this day and has kept them afloat? Dead or Alive Extreme. Dead or Alive Extreme makes them so much money now, due to just the long-term effects, as we already spoke about. So I think that's more than enough evidence to prove right off the rip for one thing specifically. Koei Tecmo cares about money, bro. They're more than likely not interested in making a new game if it doesn't make them money, bro. And not only that, I'm willing to go as far as to say is they're willing to cut costs if they don't feel confident in a project 100%. Let's look at Ninja Gaiden. This was the year of the ninja. This was the comeback. This is probably the most hopeful we've been for a new DOA in quite a long time, right? Which I'll get into how that hope has climaxed a bit later in the video. Let's look at the games that they've made, right? And this is not to discredit the games. These are some good games, in my opinion. These are all really fun games to play. But let's look at Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, which all that was an Unreal Engine 5 remaster of Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2. You know, putting all the blood and gore back, and they fixed a couple levels, added more enemies into the levels to create something closer to the original Ninja Gaiden 2, right? I'm not really a development expert, but that don't sound like as much effort as making a whole new game, you know? Ninja Gaiden 4, they outsourced that to Platinum Games. Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, that was outsourced to the Game Kitchen. These are top tier, these are good developers, by the way. Platinum Games are known for good action games. The Game Kitchen, they made a game called Blasphemous, which is a really good game in the genre that it's in. And like I said, these are really good games. Ninja Gaiden 4, fun. Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, fun. But it really had me sitting here wondering, like, why are they outsourcing all these games? Are they trying to like save like resources that way they can work on other games like Neo and stuff, and maybe working on like a follow-up to their Rise of Ronin, Wolong Fallen Dynasty, or any other games they have down the pipeline? Or is they simply doing this just to cut costs? I didn't know this until I started doing more research on it. Apparently outsourcing saves more money than spending on a new, you know, to have another company work on your game. By outsourcing these games, they're able to increase revenue by speeding up the development, which allows for a faster way to get a return on their investment. And then since they have access to the IP, they're able to get royalties off of it and stuff like that. They have no worries about pay per project or avoiding the cost of like the equipment, utilities, and all that other stuff to make it. All they gotta do is pay the studio and then get royalties, or they get a percentage of each unit that's sold. And since it's IP like Ninja Gaiden, they're probably able to be a little bit more aggressive with the percentage rates. They could be getting a 60-40, 70-30, 50-50 split. You just never know how much revenue they're actually pulling for being able to do that at a lower cost than developing it themselves. So it's one of the two, and I just really don't know which one it is, but it just leaves me with a question, and it really just makes me wonder if they would have even bothered trying to make these games and trying to make this revival if they wasn't able to outsource it. Like, if they didn't outsource it, would they have even bothered trying to make these? Because from what it seems like, in a lot of ways, it kind of feels like Koei Tecmo wants to move on from Ninja Gaiden. They kind of want to move on to Neo and other projects. And the reason why is because they don't see those two things there. They don't see the fan push, they don't see the amount, they don't see fan interest, and they don't see the revenue coming in. So speaking of that, how well did these games sell? How well did these new games sell? Because if they don't see the money, they're not trying to make another one, right? There's not really too much data on Ninja Gaiden 4 as far as the numbers right now, but what I can go off of is Steam charts in the first week sales in Japan, which was under 12K. Ninja Gaiden 4 only sold 11,900 copies in the first week for in Japan at least. Not sure how much different that is for the US. We don't have those numbers. But if I go on the Steam chart, an all time is under 10K. It's only 9.5. So not sure how well that's good doing for PlayStation as far as like on the West, but each number is saying underneath 15K, which, I'm gonna be honest, it's not looking too good. Mind you, before Koei Tecmo really likes to give any real promotion towards any of their products is normally when they sell over 1 million. When they move over 1 million units and stuff, that's normally a sign of success, because you normally see them posting stuff like that on Twitter. Another bit of evidence that Koei Tecmo isn't really liking the sales for Ninja Gaiden 4 is because they're real quick to celebrate when their game's doing good, and they're quick to promote their games when they're doing good. They was real quick to drop this thank you for the 1 million copies sold worldwide. You go onto their page and they're proud to promote these other games. They're proud to promote their Atelier Riser games. They're proud to promote their Neo games. They're proud to promote their Dynasty Warriors, even the Fatal Frame. They're proud to promote those. When it comes to Team Ninja and Ninja Gaiden 4 on top of that, I don't know. It just seems like you just get reposts from them. You get reposts. You just get reposts of stuff from Team Ninja. Like, you don't get no direct posts. Koei Tecmo is directly posting. They're directly posting stuff for the Atelier games. But stuff from even Neo, they're kind of doing that. But they're posting specifically for Atelier and Dynasty Warriors games. And Fatal Frame. And here goes Neo right there, asking people to join their content program. But Team Ninja and Ninja Gaiden, you just get reposts. One post they have from them is them saying that Microsoft is the publisher and not them for Ninja Gaiden 4. Like, what? So they just feigning all responsibility. And like I said, it partially feels like they just don't want nothing to do with Ninja Gaiden really like that. Like, they kind of want to just wash their hands with the product. And then by extension, that means they kind of want to wash their hands with DOA because it's not have what? Money and fan interest on the table. And I kind of think this is why Manny said what he said.
Okay, if you get 10,000 likes on your Twitter post, I will tell the team to start to try to make another DOA.
Hey,
I find that interesting from Master. I think that was done on purpose. What if 10,000 likes is enough to show Team Ninja, enough for Team Ninja to show Koei Tecmo, hey, there's interest in this game, so let's go ahead and try to do something for this game. What if there was literally a method to that, and that wasn't just for show? What if that wasn't just for shits and giggles? What if that wasn't just cause Master was drunk? And lo and behold, we did indeed hit those 10k likes. It's only a wonder to see where things go from there, because fan interest is definitely there. And speaking of, even though we got them 10k likes, that might not be enough. But there was something that happened that for 100% tells me the fan interest is there. And unfortunately, we have to start where it all changed. Itagaki's passing. Now, rest in peace to Itagaki. He ended up passing away not too long before Ninja Gaiden 4 dropped, which I felt like put a lot of pressure on Ninja Gaiden 4 as a game. DOA fans, Ninja Gaiden fans, we're all reeling. We're all reeling from this. Something happened. I don't know what it was, but the paradigm shifted when Maximilian tried to pay his respects. Now, one thing about Max, he already learned the truth about Itagaki before he passed. He made a video about this a long time ago. Not a long time ago, but a few months before, where he read a long excerpt from Harada where he was making a long speech about Itagaki and how him and Itagaki had a rivalry, but it was all really for show. And at the end of the day, he was just playing a heel role to get more eyes on his game. He didn't really hate Tekken like he said he did. He showed respect, and that respect kind of came off as disingenuous because he really didn't like DOA as a game. He wasn't a fan of a game. He wasn't a fan of DOA. For one reason or another, this fucking exploded into a whole bunch. It just exploded into a whole bunch of different shit. Whereas, I don't know what it was, but if I were to take a guess, the DOA fans that all came out who were reeling over this, they seen that shit and they were seeing other people who either never played our game or people who did play our game and or for one reason or another want to shit on our game and was coming out to pay respects. The DOA community chose war. That's what happened. Basically, anybody who had a history of saying they didn't like DOA that was trying to pay respect now was getting dunked on. It was getting reposted, and it was a lot of, I ain't gonna lie, it was a lot of vitriol. It felt like 10 plus years worth of frustration from fans was just released all at the same time. When it comes to DOA, our fans are very passionate, but I'm like, yo, let's not be so passionate to the point where we're actively pushing people away from our games. That's one thing about the VF community that I really like. They're like, look, people be shitting on VF, almost as much as people be shitting on DOA because VF looks old or dated or whatever the fuck, even though it's probably the best fighting game out to play right now. Revo World Stage, it's probably the best game to play right now, not gonna lie. But people will shit on that game because it look old or it's an old ass game or whatever the fuck. You don't never see the VF people lash out or crash out on you unless you just say some really egregious shit like you don't want to play the game because there's a block button. That's the only time they gonna give you some shit. But other than that, the VF community, if they see that you have interest in the game, they're gonna be like, come play our game. We will teach you. We will show you the way. You go to DOA, people trying to show respect. You're like, man, fuck out of here, man. Fuck. How are we gonna get more people in our game? The more people that get into our game, the more people that show interest in our game, it'll increase the amount of people that want to fuck with us, bro. Which increases fan interest, which gives more people, which clears that second requirement, you know? So I was like, yo, let's calm down. And a lot of people calmed down. But then another thing happened, right? Some people in the DOA community, I won't say their names, but a few people in the DOA community kind of took this shit to another level, right? They was using this shit. They was using Itagaki's passing because everybody was like, yo, we need to pay respect. We need to pay respect to this man, the art that he created. So nobody was really talking shit about us, you know? It was kind of one of those, like, out of respect, even though a lot of people, I seen people that like Tekken that actively do not like DOA at all, that wasn't saying nothing throughout this process. Like, they was just being silent or whatever. So I'm like, okay, it is what it is. You had people in the DOA community that was actively warmongering. And by warmongering, I mean they was using his death and the silence of, you know, a lot of Tekken people as an opportunity to shit on Tekken players. And I'm like, bro, for why? Why are we using, yo, the one time Tekken niggas leave us alone, and you want to use this as an opportunity to attack them, bro? Like, what are we doing right now, bro? Like, that was nuts. That was nuts. So then I was real like, yo, okay, now that's just crazy. That's crazy. Cut that shit out, bro. We do not need to be attacking other people for no fucking reason. Cut that shit out, man. There's no reason to be attacking people when they're not even messing with us right now. That's one thing about me. Like, yeah, I'm gonna get on your ass, but I'm only gonna get on your ass out of retaliation. If you're out here just spreading misinformation for no fucking reason, yeah, I'm gonna call that shit out when I see it. The last real thing that really escalated from here was when you had these same people, they pivoted the discussion back to Gooner versus anti-Gooner or whatever the fuck. They pivoted it back to that discussion that they've always done when they want to stir up some shit, right? They turned it back to that, and then then I started seeing tweets where people were saying that the game appeals, that the DOA 6, they tried to appeal to pedophiles. And by pedophiles, they was trying to refer to the entire competitive side of DOA. They put pedophiles with an S and all that. Now, luckily, because this shit was crazy, I'm like, why the fuck are we accusing people of crimes and not dropping names? You just gonna accuse the entire competitive community? I know I've spoken to some of these people in the competitive community personally. So who are we talking about that's out here touching on kids, bro? Now, luckily, my boy Destruction Bomb cleared up a lot of that misinformation, bro. My boy Destruction Bomb cleared up the misinformation with this one statement, man, saying that it wasn't a whole bunch of people, it was one person, and a person that was, and his, ironically enough, related to the core value situation. And the guy hated DOA, but he also hated the DOA competitive community. So not only did you accuse a whole sector of the community of crimes, but the person that was actually committing the crimes, the person that was actually committing the crimes didn't want nothing to do with us. They wouldn't want to be seeing the same room with us, bro. So for y'all to be out here throwing out claims or niggas committing crimes, that shit is fucking disgusting. I don't know why you're doing that bullshit. We are a fighting game community, not a fucking gacha game community. You need the shit slapped out of you for saying some bullshit like this. Not even gonna bullshit you. Please fucking stop. Luckily it has stopped, and he's gone, and these people have gone back to going into like just posting pictures of whatever they like to post or whatever the fuck. Luckily a lot of this shit is done and passed behind us by this point. I'm speaking on stuff that's happened maybe, I want to say maybe a week ago now. So thank goodness a lot of this shit is quelled. And now the worst thing I'm seeing is grifting. That's like the worst thing I'm seeing for DOA now. You got people who've never played the game before, never made content on the game before, all of a sudden talking about things, ways to fix the game and stuff like that. And that shit getting views. That shit getting views just because of the situation that it's in. So I mean, it is what it is. I'm not gonna trip too hard about it, but it is kind of wild because you got people that's been making DOA content for a long ass time, bro. But I guess what I said is true, man. It's never been a better time to get into some DOA. Look, all I ask is, bro, if you gonna make content, play the game too, bro. If you gonna make content, play the game too. But I digress, man. But hey, look, man, all seriousness, I'll take grifting over committing people of crimes like we're in a fucking Genshin Impact community, bro. Because that's what niggas was doing over there. Now, if all this presented information that we have, we can wrap this up in a one nice little bow by finally answering a couple questions and lead it into our final question that really will conclude this video. The main question was why? Why did things have to be as they were? And according to majority of the data and majority of the things that we've seen, most of it ties back to money. They are a money first company, and whether it's greed or just the fact that they need something to keep themselves afloat has influenced a lot of their decisions, which in turn hurt one of their franchises, which unfortunately just happened to be the one that we all know and love is Dead or Alive. So the question remains, will Dead or Alive come back? Will Dead or Alive revive like Ninja Gaiden has? Well, it all really boils down to a couple things. It depends on their expectations for Ninja Gaiden revival. And I say that because after doing a little bit more digging, I have a little bit more to show you in terms of sales numbers. Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, they made about 1 million in gross revenue and sold about close to 60k units. Ninja Gaiden 4, they made 8.3 million in gross revenue and sold 148,000 units. And Ninja Gaiden 2 Black made 3.6 million in gross revenue and sold 95,000 units. While these aren't shabby numbers in terms of gross revenue, we know that games like Samurai Warriors and stuff like that, the games that they actually promote, are things that be selling 1 million units and above. Those are the type of things that they like posting and that Koei Tecmo really likes to promote and push. So it really depends on what their expectations were for this and if they exceeded them or if they undercut them. And that'll really determine if they do it, because like they've said plainly clear as day for other games, how they've told other studios, if it doesn't sell, they won't make another one. And this just further proves my point when you look at games like the Dynasty Warriors games. Look at the recent Dynasty Warriors Origins. Almost 900,000 units sold and made 48.5 million in gross revenue. That's probably what they're looking for if they're trying to really want to push to keep making games. They want stuff that's making this kind of money, and unfortunately I just don't know if Ninja Gaiden's going to see these numbers. However, it's not all doom and gloom. With the event of Itagaki passing, on top of the amount of resurgence that Dead or Alive has had, on top of how much spotlight is getting in the media and social media on all platforms, not just Twitter, not just YouTube, it gets press everywhere now, or it's getting a lot more press than what it used to for a fighting game. It seems like in terms of trying to strike while the iron's hot, the iron's scorching at this point. And I believe if we want to see a new DOA, we need to continue this momentum that we have in the algorithm. We need to continue to push, because this is what this is going to be. It's going to be a push and pull. Even though this game isn't selling as much as a Dynasty Warriors or a Samurai Warriors, we want to be here to basically say, hey, we're here to show out for this game, because I know they're watching. And if we want to see another one, we need to basically keep showing that we have interest in the game. Not to the point to where we're straight up attacking other player bases and calling people and committing them of crazy shit, but actually trying to show off our love for this series. There's also next year. Next year marks the 30th anniversary of Dead or Alive. It's literally the perfect time to announce that something's coming. If you were to give me a guess with the stuff with Halo's going over to other consoles and other games are going over onto other consoles, I kind of have a feeling that if I were to make a hardcore prediction, I might have a feeling that DOA 4 might potentially be going to all platforms, but that's just a hard guess. That's my hard guess because if we look at how they treated Ninja Gaiden, they outsourced Ninja Gaiden. Any new Ninja Gaiden project that they couldn't just put a fresh coat of paint over, they kind of just outsourced it. Like, they didn't want to do that. And I believe the majority of the people who at Team Ninja who originally directed Dead or Alive at the current moment is still gone, right? So like the people who were normally like in charge of how DOA ran before, I feel like everybody who was a part of them teams are gone now. So I would feel like they would either outsource it or they would try to put a new fresh coat of paint over something that they already made previously, which that would either be DOA 4, 5, and 6. And what DOA game was the most popular of its time? DOA 4. So it's kind of the reason why I'm feeling the way I feel right now when it comes to that prediction. But that's, like I said, just a prediction. But outside of that, if we want to see any of that, we need to keep doing what we're doing for the community. We need to keep pushing for the community and basically just saying, hey, we want a new DOA, and show off and play the game, bro. Play DOA 5, play DOA 6, play any DOA that you may have, and just show it off. Show off that you love this game, that you love this franchise. That's how we're going to get their attention. Because if we were to just do it off of sales numbers, I don't think we would have a high likelihood of doing it. But it's so many events that's lined up in place for us to give us enough power to make that push that I believe we need in order to make this happen. Will DOA revive? I think for the first time in a long time, it might be in the hands of the players. Get in the comment box, let me know how you guys feeling about this, man. This has been your boy Golden Ghost. If you enjoy this type of content, man, don't forget to leave a like, comment, share with your friends. Hit the hype button if you have it. And as always, man, subscribe for some more from the Golden Ghost Cartel. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Deuces.